What happens when the most powerful government on earth decides that a comedian's joke is a national security threat? Not a whistleblower, not a foreign spy, not a classified leak. A joke on a late-night talk show about the First Lady. This week, the Trump administration did something that no American government has done in decades. It weaponized a federal regulatory agency to directly threaten the broadcast licenses of one of the biggest media empires in the world, all because a comedian refused to apologize. On the surface, this looks like celebrity drama, a political spat between a president and a TV host, the kind of story that trends for 2 days and disappears. But look closer, through the lens of geopolitics, through the lens of how power actually works, and what you are watching is something far more significant, something that governments from London to Berlin to Tokyo are quietly taking notes on right now. This is the story of how a single joke triggered a constitutional crisis and what it reveals about the future of free media in the world's most powerful democracy. Let's establish the facts clearly, because the sequence of events matters enormously. Jimmy Kimmel made a joke during a sketch on his late-night show, a mock speech for an alternative White House Correspondents' Dinner. He quipped that Melania Trump had a glow like an expectant widow. KPBS. The joke aired 3 days before the actual White House Correspondents' Dinner. Then something genuinely serious happened. A heavily armed man allegedly attempted to enter the ballroom, where President Trump and other senior members of the administration were present. The suspect was charged with attempting to assassinate the president. KPBS. The administration drew a connection between the joke and the attack. Melania Trump called Kimmel's joke hateful and violent and urged ABC to take action. President Trump followed up with a social media post calling for Kimmel to be fired. NPR. Kimmel did not apologize. He went on air and defended himself. He told viewers that under the First Amendment, Americans have the right to free speech, and that his comment was simply a joke about the age difference between the president and the First Lady. His monologue went viral, racking up millions of views. CNN, Disney, ABC's parent company, said nothing publicly, but their actions spoke clearly. They kept Kimmel on air. They aired his show the night after the pressure campaign began. Then on Tuesday, April 28, 2026, the federal government escalated in a way that stunned media and legal observers across the country. The Trump-aligned FCC ordered Disney's ABC to file license renewals for all of their licensed TV stations within 30 days. By May 28, 2026, CNN. To understand why that is extraordinary, you need to understand what broadcast licenses actually are and what it means for a government to threaten them. The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is the U.S. government agency that controls who is allowed to broadcast on public airwaves. Every television and radio station in America operates on a government-issued license. Without that license, a broadcaster cannot legally transmit a single frame of content. Licensees apply for renewals every 8 years, and licenses are virtually never revoked. The system was designed to be a technical regulatory framework, managing spectrum, ensuring public interest broadcasting, preventing monopolies. It was never designed to be a political weapon. CNN, the spectrum licenses for the 8 ABC-owned stations, were not due to come up for renewal until 2028 at the earliest, with some not due until 2031. The FCC pulled them forward, now under emergency justification, citing an investigation into Disney's diversity and inclusion policies as the official legal rationale. Variety. While the FCC asserts that the license review is related to an ongoing probe into Disney's diversity initiatives, it is being widely viewed as a form of government retaliation for airing Kimmel's show and resisting Trump's pressure. CNN. Legal experts were blunt about what this represents. Public interest lawyer Andrew J. Schwartzman told CNN that this weapon had not been deployed against a major broadcaster in many decades. CNN. The FCC's only Democratic commissioner was even more direct. Ana Gomez called the move unprecedented and unlawful, saying it was a political stunt that would not survive legal challenge, and that the First Amendment was on Disney's side. CNN press freedom advocates agreed. Seth Stern of the Freedom of the Press Foundation stated that the First Amendment and the FCC's own mandate do not permit the agency to use broadcast licenses as weapons to punish broadcasters. for constitutionally protected content, CNN. So legally, Disney almost certainly wins. The legal standard for denying a license renewal is described by experts as almost insurmountable, and a hearing and subsequent judicial review would take years, during which time the broadcaster can continue to operate as normal. CNN. But here is the critical insight that most coverage is missing entirely. Winning the legal battle is not the point. The process itself is the punishment. This is where the fallen empire lens matters, because what is happening in Washington this week is not just an American story, it is a template, and the world's governments are watching. Throughout history, the decline of democratic norms has rarely announced itself with a single dramatic moment. It happens incrementally, through the gradual normalization of pressure, through the slow redefinition of what is acceptable for a government to do to a media institution that criticizes it. What the Trump administration has demonstrated this week is that a regulatory agency, one that was designed purely for technical spectrum management, can be converted into a political pressure tool against any media company that refuses to comply with the government's preferred narrative. This has happened before, in other countries, in other contexts. In Hungary, Viktor Orban systematically used regulatory and financial pressure to bring the country's independent media landscape to heel over. The course of a decade. Not through outright bans. Those would have been too visible, too obviously authoritarian. Through license complications, through advertising pressure, through regulatory investigations that never quite concluded, but never quite went away. The mechanism being deployed against ABC this week is structurally identical, even if the American legal system provides far stronger protections that make the outcome very different. This is why democratic governments from Europe to Asia are paying close attention. Because the United States has historically been the anchor, the country whose commitment to press freedom set the standard that other democracies measured themselves against, and authoritarian governments were pressured to reach toward. When that anchor begins to drag, the entire system of global democratic norms feels the shift. This is not the first time Kimmel, ABC, or Disney have faced pressure from the Trump administration. In September, Disney briefly suspended Kimmel's show after political backlash, and the show was only reinstated 6 days later after widespread criticism, including from conservatives. Each time the pressure comes, the boundary of what is considered normal moves slightly. Each normalization makes the next escalation easier to deploy. NPR. That is the geopolitical story underneath this celebrity controversy. Not whether Kimmel's joke was appropriate, not whether Disney will win in court, but whether the pattern of incremental pressure on independent media, now openly deployed by the world's most powerful government, becomes the new normal that other governments feel licensed to emulate. Disney will almost certainly survive this. Their lawyers are excellent, their legal protections are strong, and the courts will take years to even reach a meaningful judgment, during which time ABC stays on air and Kimmel keeps his show. But survival is not the same as victory, and this moment will be studied by media institutions, by governments, and by historians as a marker, a data point in the longer arc of how democratic institutions either hold their ground or gradually surrender it under sustained pressure. The comedian made a joke, the president demanded an apology, the comedian refused, and the federal government reached for a regulatory weapon it had not used in decades. In the context of a single news cycle, that looks like political theater. In the context of the longer sweep of history, the history this channel exists to examine, it looks like something else entirely. Empires and democracies do not fall in a day. They erode, boundary by boundary, norm by norm, precedent by precedent. The question is never whether any single action destroys an institution. The question is always, what does it make possible next? This is the fallen empire, where the headlines of today become the history lessons of tomorrow.